If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. Today I'm happy to sew along with you the Makayla bag by Deja Designs. This is my very first Deja Designs pattern and I must tell you it does not disappoint. And this is a free one, so if you do not have this, if you want to dip your toe into some Deja Designs, make sure you hop on over to her website and get this free pattern to see if you like her style. I have that link down below to where you can get this, this pattern if you need it. This is the small size. There are instructions and pattern pieces for a small and medium size. I truly love the small size. The only thing I really changed in it is I added a crossbody strap rather than a shoulder strap. For my clients, I just thought it would be more versatile as a crossbody. You can choose to make it with a turn lock or a magnetic snap. This is a birth bag. What else? I know it's, let me show you. You can see she's not super big, but she's super elegant. On the inside, you have a slip pocket or a zipper pocket. You could add a slip pocket if you wanted to, but it's very small on the inside. It's fairly roomy for a small bag actually, but I don't know if there'd be much room for a slip pocket, but you could put in a very small one if you wanted to. Thank you so much, Andrea, for allowing me to make this video. I must thank you right off the hop. Materials I used in this bag. This is the Blue Sky Pearl Vinyl from Galaxy Customs. As you all know, the Pearl Vinyls from Galaxy Customs are my utmost favorite vinyls of all time. They kind of have this sheen to them. They're vintage. They remind me of interiors of the cars from the 1950s. I just love them. And she has amazing colors. My waterproof canvas is a 400 denier waterproof Kamloops. I live in Kamloops. This is a canvas from Sam Fabrics Creations. I have all this linked down below in the description. My hardware is a mixture of stuff I had in my stash. Some of it is from Emmaline bags. The rest of it is from Serial Bagmakers. What else? Interfacing in this bag. There's actually minimal interfacing. So it calls for a Decovil Lite. I substituted the Decovil Lite for Fuse Heavy, which is a Emmaline Bags product similar to Decovil Lite, but it is woven. In my flap, I did change it to Decovil Heavy rather than Decovil Lite, mainly because of my turn lock. I needed a little extra something for the male piece to be able to grab into. So I put Decovil Heavy in my flap, and I also put in just a few little scraps of Decovil Lite for a non-woven type, kind of right behind where we will be, you will see when we do the video where we put the rivet through, just so it gives a little bit of something that will not stretch with use. If I were to be using a cotton lining, I would have backed everything with the Fuse Lite, which is similar to a medium woven interfacing like SF101. Again, it's an Emmaline Bags product. Yeah, if you've lost your Sojo and you need a quick bag or a quick gift to get going, this is the one, because it doesn't look like it's a fast project. It's super classy, it's super sleek, and I promise you it'll get your Sojo going. So yeah. Oh. How about we just get to making this, because I'm so excited to show you how it comes together. I'll catch you guys on the other side. You are going to need some rivets, number 5 zipper tape, nameplate, 2 optional strap pins. I'm going to be doing a turn lock in this one, a slider, 2 swivel clasps, 2 D-rings, and a number 5 zipper pull. Your 2 lining main pieces, your zipper overlay, your gusset with your stabilizer fused on outside of the seam allowances, 2 zipper pocket lining pieces, your flap pieces, exterior and lining on the exterior with your stabilizer outside of the seam allowances, 2 exterior main panels, again with your stabilizer outside of the seam allowances, your 2 strap or connector strips. This is my crossbody strap, my 2 connector pieces, my flap strip, I'm going to go ahead and do my crossbody strap off camera. If you need a class on how to do that, it's down below in the description. Okay, so we are going to prep our connector strips and our connectors. So I've drawn a halfway mark as per the pattern on my 2 connector strips. I'm going to use some double-sided tape. You also can use clips if you wanted to. You're going to fold this into that center line. So on this one, it is the 2 short ends you're folding down. Do the same with the connector pieces. Now on our connectors, we're going to do an 1/8 of an inch top stitch down each of the folded sides, and on the connector strips, we're going to do an 1/8 of an inch and a 3/8 of an inch top stitch down each of those folded sides. Now that those are done, you can put the connectors aside. For these connector strips, what we want to do is pull back some of that tape, and we want to trim the back off to about an 1/8 of an inch away from that last line of top stitching we did just to help reduce some bulk for later on when we're sewing these on. Okay, so now what you're going to do is take your template in your pattern, put them over these connector strips, and then you're going to make the connector strips the same shape as that template. So you will do that for both of them. Okay, now that that's done, I've already gone ahead and I did my zipper pocket, leaving it open for finishing later on in the bag, making the bag. If you need instructions on how to do that, down below in the description. So now take your 2 lining pieces, put them right sides together, and what we're going to do is we are just going to clip together the sides. We're going to leave the bottom fully open for now to make for easy turning later on. And along these sides, we're going to go ahead and sew down these sides with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. That's all done. Go ahead and set that aside. All right, so let's work on our gusset. So we're going to utilize some of these fold lines on the pattern piece. So I'm going to fold down to that first dotted fold line, and I'm going to make a mark. And then I'm going to fold down to the second dotted line and make a mark. You will do the same on the opposite side of the gusset as well. Now we also want to find the center of this line. You can definitely use your pattern piece. The center is marked, and you can just mark your center. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our connector. The connector is wrong side up, and we are going to put it nice and centered. I'm going to use some double-sided tape on the bottom of it to hold it in place. So I'm putting that on the right side of the connector. Now the connector's wrong side up, and I'm putting it nice and centered along that first line we drew. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to draw or sew a little box like so, just a little like 1/2 inch-ish box, or the size 3/4 inch or so, whatever it is on the pattern piece there, to hold that in place. Right, so I've done that on both sides. Now what we want to do, I forgot to mark my centers of the tops of my gusset. You'll definitely want to have that for later on, as well as with the longer sides. So this is an easy point to go ahead and do little snips if you like to do the snips. And now what we want to do is we want to take our D-rings and slide it on so the flat side is facing up. Put a little bit of double-sided tape on the other raw edge of that connector, so that's going on the wrong side of the connector. And we are going to bring that side of the connector down to that second line nice and centered that we drew, just like so. And stick her down, and we're going to go do another box to hold that in place on both sides. Okay, so now that that's done, we can do our connector strip. So you're going to find on the pattern piece some fold lines for, I think they're solid, for the placement of our connector strips. So go ahead and trace those onto each side. And then what we're going to do is take our connector strip, and we are going to match up the raw edges, just like so. Make them nice and even. It will bow a little bit, and that of course is what we want because it leaves room for the connector in behind it. So go ahead and clip those on, and then you're going to go and you're going to base those on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on both sides. That is our gusset complete. So now we're going to work on our flap. So if you were doing a magnetic snap, you would be putting the male side of the magnetic snap on the lining side, and you would be using your pattern piece here for that mark. You can also make a mark on the exterior piece for later on when we go and do our thumb or our turn lock. So yes, if you're doing magnetic snap, go ahead and install that on the lining side. You want to find your top and bottom centers of both of these pieces. And then you're going to put these right sides together, and you're going to clip down the sides and the bottom, leaving the top open. And then once you have that all clipped together, you're going to go ahead and sew down with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, leaving that top open. Now I went around with the second line of stitching just because I'm using a thicker vinyl and I don't want to stress my seams out too much. Now I'm just trimming up on an angle the corners so we can get nice pointy corners on this flap. Make sure you're not cutting into your stitches, you're just kind of cutting on a diagonal on those corners. And I'm going to take my pinking shears and just go around that curved bottom edge so we can get a nice curvy seam along that bottom. Once you've done that, go ahead and turn this right side out. Once all your seams are finger pressed, you can go ahead and I'm just going to put a couple clips along this open raw edge side. And what we're going to do is baste along that raw edge and top stitch around the rest of it with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so that is all done. You can set that aside for now. Now I'm going to take my main back piece. There are guidelines on the back of the pattern pieces if you want to use them here. I'm going to draw my 2 lines on the back of this for my flap placement and my flap strip placement as per the pattern measurements, as you can see here. Now I also want to find the center here, so I'll be able to center my flap on. So I'm going to use my pattern piece, which has the center marks, and put that there. I've already done a center snip along my raw edge of my flap. I'm going to put some double-sided tape on the lining side of my flap, and I'm going to do this with my flap up and my exterior piece both right side up, and center it on and give it a good stick down. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew this on with an 1/8 of an inch and then go back in with a 1/4 of an inch. You do not want to go past the flap here because you just need to sew along the flap. That's done. Now we can work on our flap strip. So just like we did with our connectors, we have our center line. I'm just going to use a thicker piece of double-sided tape here, and I'm going to fold those long sides down into that center line. And then I'm going to take another piece of double-sided tape along the wrong side of that flap strip right down the center. And then I'm going to line up the bottom edge of this flap strip with that second line that we drew. And this is going to hide the raw edge of that flap. Once we have that on there nice and centered, you're going to go and top stitch along each of those folded edges with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Is done. I've also gone and put in a couple of rivets backed with some Decovil Heavy scraps just to make that flap a little more secure. I don't think it's necessary. I just like the look of the rivets myself. And then I went and trimmed off the wings of the flap. Okay, so now we can do our female side of our magnetic snap or the male side of our turn lock. So use your pattern piece to find the placement for that. Find your top and bottom centers of this piece as well. And then go ahead and install either the female side of your magnetic snap or the male side of your turn lock as per your manufacturer's directions. So that is done. I've backed it with some Decovil Heavy scrap as well as a piece of tape to cover up the prongs. You can also see here what I was talking about earlier. I just put some Decovil Lite scraps just kind of behind where we'll be riveting the connector later on. Stick your D-rings down and inside. You'll also see I've put my nameplate on already. You can decide where you want to put that. Take your gusset, put it right sides together with that exterior front piece, match up that middle center with a couple clips, bring the side up, and a couple clips hold the sides in place. Same with the opposite side. That Decovil Lite piece, that's just again to give my rivet a little extra something to grab onto. Okay, and then once you have those 3 points done, you can start evenly distributing the fabric in between those marks. Now you're going to see my gusset is straight and it doesn't want to go around that corner, the curvy corner of my main exterior piece there. So I'm putting little 1/8 of an inch-ish snips into that corner, and what that does is it helps spread that fabric out like so to make it go around that corner. So go ahead and clip this all the way to the other side. Now we're going to take this to the machine with the main panel down, and we are going to sew this around this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, being very careful not to sew through your connector. You'll be sewing through the connector strip. You may need your hump jumper for that, depending on your machine. But yes, all the way around. Take the corners nice and slow to make sure you have no puckers. Just going to do a little trick here. I'm going to do a little snip about 1 inch or so down without cutting our threads. And that just helps us open up that seam allowance for later on to make it less bulky. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and then baste those in place, and that'll hold those seams open. I'm also going to take my pinking shears around this corner and trim down the seam allowance with those. And then I'm just going to trim the seam allowance along the bottom to about 1/4 of an inch or so as well, but I am going to leave the sides. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to do the exact same thing with the back panel, making sure you're not sewing through your flap at all, and sew it on the same way with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you can see here how I'm holding my flap out of the way just to ensure that I am not going to sew through that flap. All right, so once that's done, you can go ahead and you can turn this right side out. You can check all of your seams to make sure everything was caught and there was no puckers. If there's a few puckers, it's really not the end of the world. But mine look pretty good. Once you're happy with that, what we're going to do now is kind of fold the flap down and out of the way, take our lining piece, and we are going to put the exterior inside that lining piece, right sides together, again making sure that the flap is hanging out between the two layers. Match up the top centers of both the linings and the exterior pieces on both sides. This is really easy to maneuver because we have a complete opening in the lining bottom. Once you've got the front and back done, go ahead and match up that gusset center strip with the center seam of the seam of our lining and clip that together. Again, making sure your connector piece and your D-ring are tucked in down below so you're not going to accidentally sew through those. Once you have all four sides, all four centers matched up, go ahead and evenly distribute the fabric the rest of the way around. And again, making sure your seams are open just to reduce some of that bulk when it comes to top stitching. So you can see I am no stranger to clips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to my cylinder arm and sew it from the outside. You can do the same thing if you have a free arm. If I was on my flatbed, I would sew it from the inside of the bag and move it around. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this together with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so that is all done. Make sure everything was caught, and if so, turn this nice and easy. Look how fast that was. Right sides through, double check your seam that everything was caught, and push that lining inside, and then start finger pressing and rolling that top seam and holding it with clips to prepare for top stitching. And there we go, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this to my cylinder arm and I'm going to top stitch it. That's done. It looks beautiful. And now we need to close up that lining. So now we're going to open up that zipper pocket, pull that out, reach in through the opening in the bottom of that zipper pocket, and pull the entire lining bottom through that pocket. This makes for a really nice seamless bottom closure. Because the seam is going to be in the bottom of the zipper pocket. It's not going to be at the bottom of the bag. So along the long side of the bottom lining pieces, match up the centers that we had snipped and put clips all along that straight edge. Do not worry about the box corners just yet. We will be coming to those shortly. Just go ahead and clip that long edge. now we're going to take this to the machine and sew across there with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. That's done. Now we can box these corners, so kind of pinch those seams together like so. I'm just going to nest my seams, put in a few clips, do the same with the opposite boxed corner. Kind of put your fingers in, bring those seams together and nest them and clip. Make sure your bottom seam is going the same direction on both sides. And then we can take these to the machine and sew across them with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And once that's done, stuff that in the side, make sure there are no gaps and it's good. And then all you have to do is fold in the raw edges of your zipper pocket and top stitch that shut. That's all of our closing holes closed. Put the zipper pocket back in nice and flat. Do up your pocket. And now it is time to do the turn lock. So one thing I like to do for the turn lock, you can definitely use the marking in the pattern. Mine rubbed away. But what I do is I take an air erasing pen and I kind of scribble on the top of my thumb lock, like so. And then I fold my flap over like so, and I press it on that thumb lock and the ink will transfer. And then you know it is matching up perfect. So that's where my ink transferred right there. I'm going to double check it. That looks good to me. And I'm going to go ahead and install the female side once I determine that that mark I made is definitely center, which mine is. And I'm going to install the female side as per the manufacturer's instructions. So I have done that here. It closes perfect in center. That is awesome. And lastly, all we have to do is our rivets for our connectors. So kind of poke out those D-rings again. And you'll see the D-ring goes really, really close to our top stitching, which is why we do this after the fact. So I'm going to just eyeball where my rivet's going to go. You are going to put a hole through all the layers, including the lining. Now, I originally went in with medium-sized rivets, but because I'm using a thicker vinyl, I needed a larger post. So luckily, I have a little baggie of large rivets here, so with a longer post, which worked perfectly. I'm going to put that through all the layers, all the way through to the lining, put on the back cap, and then I will set this in place with my rivet press. I will do the same with the opposite side. So that is all done. She looks good. She does up really good. I can attach my strap. Admire your work. She comes together so fast. Great job, everybody. Pat yourself on the back. And we're done. All right, that's it. That's all. What did you think of that? Fun, quick sew, hey? Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Great beginner bag. Great for any level of sewists out there. Again, this would be an amazing market bag as well. It doesn't take a lot of product to make. It doesn't take a lot of hardware to make. It could be a lower ticket item on your table as well. So yeah, I truly loved it. Anyways, if you did like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. If you'd like to support my channel further, you can always buy me a coffee. That's linked down below in the description. And again, if you haven't checked it out already, check out the videos on my membership side, just in case there's something there that sparks your interest. Anyways, until the next one, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.